So this is about what is and isn't. Quite simply, this is about what is and is not. Simply put, non-duality is not two. There is suggested no separation, no duality, no polarity, no individuality, really. There are just simply appearances. Whatever is happening is what appears to be. It's suggested that that's not real or unreal, it's not anything. It's just simply whatever is happening, abundantly fresh, wild, immediate. Just this, as it is. Without anyone in it, or out of it, or by the side of it. There's no real layers or realms or dimensions or even direction to this. This is totally immediate. So immediate suggests that there's no above, below, inside, outside, in front, behind, west, east, north, south. There's no real dimensions. It just is whatever is immediately appearing to happen for no reason at all. There's no meaning or purpose because what is beyond direction and dimension. So this being free and boundless can seem to appear as a sense of direction and dimension, but that's not a fundamental reality. It just is immediacy, spontaneity. It's beyond time and space, so therefore it's not really moving towards or away from anything. It's not coming from anywhere or going anywhere. So meaning and purpose simply cannot be found when those dimensions are seemingly revealed as not real. This is boundless and whole and complete already. In a way it's fulfilled, but not personally. It's totally boundless as it is. So this is not going or coming or becoming, just is this what is. That would seem to be energetic, not a realization, but just simply boundlessly energetic freedom appearing as whatever is happening. And it's empty and full. It's empty and full. There's no solidity or substance to anything. Substance and solidity are appearances, but they are not absolutely real or fundamental to anything. It's just absolute beingness. And this boundlessness, being whatever is happening, can appear as whatever is happening. So whatever can appear, such as space or time, would just seem to be limitations, if you like, or appearances of this. So this is simply boundlessness appearing as dimensions, as space, time, consciousness, experience, and so on. And that would seem to appear and apparently develop with this human physiology, the human form having an experience of location. So what seems to happen for a human body is a sense of someone here. There's this felt sense of someone being here, knowing what's happening. And that seems to develop sometime after the birth of the physical body. There's no real knowing about when it happens, because it actually is timeless, really. It never really happens. It just seems like there's a sense of someone living in a body and aware of what's happening. Aware of the body too, of course, because the body too becomes an object that I relate to, my body. So my body is a relationship, but it's also an ownership. I own my body, it's mine. There's a me claiming that there's a body that it belongs to, or the body belongs to me. And so the ownership seems to happen and the relationship seems to happen. So this is a dualistic, separate, artificial reality where there's a sense of distance and therefore relating to what's happening and to some extent owning what's happening or what's appearing and knowing. So the knowing, I know my body, so I know, therefore there's a distance between knower and known, subject and object. And as that seemingly apparently develops, which suggests time, which is not actually real, but as time seems to be apparent too, objectively, it's felt that things are moving, that there's a development, a process, a progression through time and space. So I am growing up, perhaps. I am learning. I am going through this and that. I am a person who is having an experience and a story and a journey and a lifespan through time and space. And I am aware of that. That's the experience, it seems, for many humans. And what also seems to develop, now that time seems to be sensed as objectively real, is autonomy. So this sense of control seems to set in. There's a felt sense that someone is choosing how to think, speak and behave. That's what seems to happen. Is a felt sense that someone is choosing what to do, how to be, and so on. So all the thoughts that may be appearing seemingly objectively are felt as my thoughts, and I have a say. There's an I that has a say in the matter. I'm choosing how to think. I'm choosing what to think about this. I'm choosing how to feel about what's being said, perhaps. I'm choosing which way to go, what to believe, in life at large. And with this sense of doership, ownership, knowership and relationship seems to feel like there's a very real story developing that is moving through time, and therefore it's with meaning and purpose, and with my control I will navigate life. I will move the body and the mind, the so-called mind, in this direction rather than that direction. And that would seem to be a sense of seeking for a better destination. So what seems to appear in this dualistic paradigm not only is time and space, consciousness, inside, outside, all of those dimensions, but also journey and destination, the seeker and the sought. And that looks seemingly different for lots of different bodies, but really it's always actually the same. Whether it's looking for pleasure, relief, comfort or solitude or sanctuary in substances, activities, other people, other places, jobs, cars, possessions and so on. Or maybe it's in religion, spirituality. So there's the apparent distinction is made for many, that the material search is the path outwards, and the spiritual path or the religious path is the one inwards. And what is exposed is that there's no inside or outside. There's no interior or exterior. There's no internal path or external path. There's no real shadow self or trauma or, trauma is an appearance, but there's no real inner child. There's no real story that is actually really presenting. It's illusory. But as long as that sense of going and looking for something else seems to be happening, it seems to be all very real and personal and meaningful. So perhaps it turns into some sort of endeavour to find God or the divine, or to become the divine, or to become enlightened, to become holy or noble or worthy enough to feel like I've found God or I've become whole or complete or something. And whether that's through Hinduism, yoga or Taoism or shamanism or therapy or psychedelics, it really is always the same search for this indescribable wholeness, which is actually totally unobjectifiable. And it's not subjectifiable either. It's not anything. It's beyond the polarity of separation, and therefore it's never really found or even lost. It's never anything other than what's happening, because it's limitless and boundless. It's not a thing that could be limited by being in the future. It's not a thing that could be limited by being over there in an ashram or a temple or even a non-duality meeting. There's no event or experience that actually reveals itself to anyone, because it's not a thing that anyone gets or finds out or dies into even. It's already everything. It's literally staring at every so-called individual in the face. It's shouting in the birds. It's presenting in nature. It's the ground underneath the feet. It's the sensations in the body. It's even the looking for it. Even the sense of someone having a personal experience is unconditionally what's longed for, because there is only that. The divine God or the beloved, whatever you want to call it, it's everything. It's never lost, it's never found, it's never revealed, it's never approached, it's never navigated. It just is absolutely all there is. All-encompassing, all-inclusive, absolute, boundless, energetic, wild freedom. So, a bit of a chit-chat can happen, and a dialogue. And sometimes sitting quietly happens, and it's all this, of course. getting angry with this, resisting this, resonating with this, it's all this. There is only this. There's no agenda for this to be a certain way. There's no one needing to get this or needing this to be a certain way. There just is this, unconditionally. It's without agenda, without cause or effect even. So whatever happens is this, unconditionally. Laughing, crying, shouting, relaxing. Agitation, fear, silence, sound, it's all this.
I can ask a question.
Yeah.
So would you say, can there be a recognition of what this is, or sort of an acknowledgement of what this is?
In a way, the recognition is that there's not a recognizer.
Okay.
The recognition is that what is already, but that's not an event or an experience or a thing.
Mm.
It's, in a way, the end of something that's already not really happening.
Mm.
So even the word recognition is somewhat misleading, because it suggests a something that happens, that someone has a recognition. Sometimes I say that it's recognition, because body would seem to cognize. I mean, it's not really cognitive. It's not anything, but yeah, body seems to apparently register, but it's not even anything. It's not real. It's not a real event or experience or something.
Hi, Alexis.
Hey.
So, there's no liberation because there is no imprisonment. So the only liberation possible is the liberation from the illusion to be someone who is in prison.
That would be a description of a something called liberation. There's no such thing as liberation, because liberation is all there is. So there's no real awakening or enlightenment when that's suddenly the case. It already is what is, and therefore it's not.
So there is not why or because to anything.
No.
Just appearing.
As a story, yeah. Why and because would seem to be story-based.
It seems to be I don't know the English for this term, but hide and seek play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's liberation playing hide and seek. Never really finding what's hiding, never really seeking for what's missing, because it's already what is, appearing as hide and seek. That too is liberation. So-called imprisonment or feeling restricted or contracted is liberation too. So liberation in this way is not talked about as the opposite of imprisonment. That too is liberation, appearing as not.
So being everything itself, there is no contradiction at all, because it is itselfing. Everything it is what it is, always for anyone in the story. So there are no contradictions.
Yeah, there's just simply what's appearing to happen.
It is harder to accept the suffering, the price, the cost of suffering for this apparent distance. It seems like that boundlessness makes favoritism. I mean, I'm a lucky one, but Gaza child is not so lucky.
Yeah.
We are on the same no oneness, but at the end he suffers a lot, and I probably want to know that suffering in my life, or at least not till now. If I speak if I speak to myself with that language, I feel a bit shamey in front of the people who really been through enormous suffering.
Perhaps that's because there's a sense that someone is behind the words. There isn't really already anyone doing, saying, thinking, feeling, perceiving. There just is doing, seeing, thinking, perceiving, listening, and so on. And suffering, too, is liberation. So that's not good news. Liberation in this way is not talked about as a positive or a negative thing. It's all-encompassing. It includes war, famine, destruction, poverty. It is everything that's happening, appearing to happen. Only appearing, really. It's not actually totally solid. And responding to pain still happens without anyone doing it, because already no one's doing anything. And that too is liberation. So this, what's being shared in a so-called meeting, gets talked about in a so-called meeting, and maybe it gets talked about in one-to-ones and dialogues and that when questions arise. But it doesn't go around, well, this doesn't go around, saying, you know, by the way, there's no one, there's no suffering, and, you know, it doesn't, because what use is that? It's useless. This is useless. This really is useless. This isn't offering solutions to the world's apparent problems. So it doesn't go around, you know, saying that to people who are PTSD victims or suffering from whatever. The response happens as the response happens, but no one does it.
And there is no connection with the brain functions. I mean, about what we know now from neuroscientists about the function that the brain creates itself for organizing a lot of informations, or the fact that there is a horizon, a limit for the brain to imagine itself working, because there is a level underneath which the apparent consciousness cannot go on self-inquirement, because it's deeper than the constructed self to understand, let's say, synapses or firing of neurons. So this is nothing have to do with what you are saying.
There is really neither consciousness or self. This is illusory, that's all. It's exposed as illusory. And scientists and rationally inclined folk like to speculate and like to investigate into the nature of the nervous system and the brain and the phenomena of how the brain develops and perceives things. But this just seems to lead to apparent conceptual and intellectual discoveries, which doesn't seem to have anything to do with a feeling of there being a self or not. So certain neuroscientists seem to discover or claim that they've discovered that there's no free will. Others seem to have claimed to have discovered that there's no self in the brain or elsewhere for that matter. And others are saying, no, there is a self-sense. It's in the left hemisphere of the brain, or some other nonsense. There isn't a self already. So those discoveries are not necessarily wrong or right, they're just seemingly appearances of thoughts and signals and, electrical impulses and whatever else is appearing. But it doesn't really seem to come anywhere near what is being shared in an apparent meeting, because this is exposing that energetically there is no one in this room or anywhere else, but there's still the appearance of organisms and functioning and whatever else, but just no one in it. The illusion is that there is someone here having a personal experience. That's the illusion.
So there is no agency in your words. There is no... you take your words, or there is not either a brain that is producing, because your words are not coming from thoughts.
Science might come out with theories as to how this is all unfolding, but what seems to be apparent is just immediately what's appearing to happen. No one is behind or in front of the words. They are simply, apparently, speaking themselves. So brain, you could talk a story about how body heard certain words, brain very quickly interpreted the meaning and all this and that, and then there's a response. But the illusion is that there was someone in there navigating and controlling and overseeing that. That's the dream. There just is immediacy, responding, listening, talking, thinking, analysing. No one's in there.
Because I have, beside the psychedelics and those substances, I have, let's say, a neurological issue, and so I've been through a lot of apparent layers of my perception of the world, of myself, and of my thoughts. Like there are buttons that I can push in the brain. In my case happens, unfortunately, without my permission and will. And I know different myselfs, and each one, depending on this state, perceive feeling, sensations, thoughts differently. So in that perception, I know that there is no one, because at least there are many.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a conceptual understanding that there's no one, perhaps. But what is seemingly, although not really, but seemingly deeper than all of that, is that there's no my to have a will or to be permitting what's happening. Those words spoke themselves. Holding the microphone, happening by itself. Coughing, fidgeting, crossing legs. It's all happening in free flow already. There's a sense, an illusory sense, that someone is having a centered experience, knowing and viewing what's happening, and choosing how to think, feel, and behave about all of that. That center is totally illusory. It's not of anything. It's not made. That exposure is pointing out that's not the reality. That's not real at all. It just seems to be a felt sense, like a felt sense that someone is hearing this. And that's illusory.
because when I lost the sensation to be someone, it's been a nightmare, complete nightmare. It happened in some cases, and it's been a nightmare because I couldn't even understand what's going on, who are you, the words that you are saying. I cannot recognize the doctor speaking to me, so I'm not able to put that experience in this context, non-conceptual concept, because the alterations create different perspective on what reality is. They interfere strongly on reality, and it doesn't count if you are yourself, there is no self, there is a word. It changes very quickly, and so it means there is a cause and effect.
That's the story.
If I don't take the pill tonight, probably tomorrow morning I will not recognize the word. So it's a pill.
That's the story. There's a real linear line, a timeline happening where I need to be around so that life can be running smoothly and efficiently. There's already no one in control. Taking the pill happens or it doesn't. No one does it. It's already happening effortlessly, with an additional sense that someone did it and was aware that they were doing it. That didn't happen, doesn't happen, never happened, never will happen. This is timeless already. And there's no real separation between the taking the pill and feeling a certain way. Cause and effect is not real because there's no separation for one event and another, or things to be influencing one another. That's what this separation experience does in its dream world, is separate and divide all of these different things and events, people and places. It sees the world in a separate way in which everything is somewhat connected but different, and they're all influencing one another, but there is no separation between things and events. It's whole, it's boundless. Perhaps when some seemingly come across this, what they're hearing is that I'm going to have to relinquish my control so that I can be free of the self.
Sorry, what is relinquish? I don't know.
Give up.
Yeah. Okay.
Let go. But there already is no one to let go, or get rid of, or release, control. It just seems to be a tension. The sense of autonomy, control, seems to be tension, misinterpreted as control. I don't know what that experience was that you're talking about, but what's seemingly being exposed is that the sense of someone being in a body is the illusion, that's all.
The way you explain that, I don't know if you've come across this guy, Ode Terjman, I think his name is.
Oh yes, I've heard of Terjman.
Yeah, the experience you explained sounds quite similar to what he describes. So for anyone that doesn't know him, I think he was a composer and a music teacher who had a similar experience of the self just dropping. Found it very disorientating, like he couldn't communicate or anything.
Yeah. And
he says this state kind of comes and goes.
Right.
So because of that experience, he went off and did kind of 6 years neuroscience study and written a couple of papers on it. There's a short book as well that he's written. It's one of the reasons yesterday actually I was asking about the non-dual state also perhaps being illusory. Because it
would only be illusory if it's a state.
If it's a state, yeah.
It's not a state.
So from his perspective, the way he explains it is that both duality and non-duality are explained by kind of different mirror neuron systems in the brain.
Right. I don't think he's saying the same thing. To be
Yeah, it
honest,
does. It sounds different. There's some similarity, but it did sound more similar to what you were explaining as your experience.
He seems to be suggesting that the self is required for the body to function, which I can tell you right now is absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no control. No one is doing anything. There is no one in control already. Absolutely not. Yeah. It's totally useless. It couldn't be more redundant. It just isn't. It seems to develop out of that sense of feeling here, real, positional, personal, limited, independent, individual, and it isn't any of them. It's totally illusory. It's not required for anything. It really is not required at all. It literally is already doing nothing. It just seems to be a sense of tension, and out of that seems to develop a sense of autonomy, which is totally insubstantial. And apparently when that collapses, body just goes on doing its thing, running, walking, sitting down, breathing, brushing teeth. I mean, think about the amount of functions that the body does without anyone's say-so. Digesting food, heart beating, lungs breathing, nails growing, pores opening and closing, sweating, facial hair. Everything is happening in free flow. And yet the arrogant claim that someone needs to be around for this to be okay is nonsense, absolute nonsense.
Even all of those processes that are happening within us without our own awareness are affected by everything else around it as well. So it's it could not be more obvious, and yet the sense is just so sort of stubbornly and adamantly asserting that it needs to be here, otherwise my life, which it thinks it has, is going to fall apart. It's just stunning. It's like boundless freedom pretending to be arrogant. It's amazing. Yeah. It sounded like you might also be familiar with Ian
I've heard of him,
Gilchrist.
Yeah.
You mentioned the left-right brain stuff. So he also has like a neurological explanation for...
Yes.
It's not the traditional left brain, right brain idea, which has been discredited, but he still thinks there's some difference, and the left brain is more kind of the dualistic perspective, and the right brain creates a kind of sense of I, but without any kind of perception of depth and time and all these kind of things. But there's still the I there, so again, it sounds... Yeah, who knows?
The somewhat sort of ironically and amusing thing about all of these guys is that they seem to be very unfortunately gifted with intelligence, because they in the dream they really seem to think they're getting somewhere with all of this without meaning to be insulting or condescending. It's not doing anything, it's not getting anywhere, and it's providing nothing. I mean, in a way it provides sort of fascination and interest for that experience that wants to know what the hell is going on, and intelligence seems to be very safe. So as long as I have an understanding, and I've got a developing understanding as the way the physiology works, the self works, the universe works, I'm a safe and secure individual that knows what's going on. I've got it figured out. Yeah. Yeah.
Alexis, if in case I give you my pills, would you say the same thing? Are you sure that you would feel not to be anyone and to say the same thing?
Who knows what's going to happen? There's no control already.
Yeah, so...
And this is
we are wasting our time because you are just without pill. Because with the pill, you say, "Let's do sex all together." I am Alexis. Come on, who are you?
Yeah. What, this would turn into a group orgy or something? Yeah. We should go have a party at that. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to get from this really, and there's no control already. And this isn't trying to convince anyone that this is the truth. Definitely not. But there's just simply an exposure that there's no one having actually an experience. Yeah, it's a dream, that's all. There's just simply an exposure that no one is in control and no one is really here. There's no real here. There's no space, really. Yeah. And that experience, so seemingly desperately clinging on for dear life, just will seem to try to figure that out or run away from it. Because it doesn't seem to be comprehended until that sense has fell away, so it can never know that there is no one. That's the end of the knowing dream. And when that apparent, additional, illusory, totally redundant perception falls away, it's just so obvious that no one's doing anything. There's no one having an experience. There is no real things.
And there is no gain. There is no gain, there is no improvement in not being anybody.
Not really. Just the neurotic drive to assert and to become and to grow, develop, heal, change, fix. It just, all the neurotic tendencies just seem to collapse. Which never really were happening, of course, but all of the needs to be a certain way, to behave a certain way, the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, all of the sort of cluttered additional stuff that seems to accompany this individual sense. It's just obvious that it's all futile. Never wrong, never bad, never a mistake or an accident, just seemingly illusory, that's all. So yeah, it's not a gain, it's not really a loss either. It would seem to be an apparent loss, but even that's illusory. So the loss of self is not a state, and it's not a non-state either. It's not anything, because it is already what is.
I'm loving this. Okay, so would you say this? Would you say this is more or less the same as when you're talking? Or when you're not talking, that this
Just is what is, yeah.
just is what it is, yeah. I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like the stark simplicity.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't bear it.
Yeah. Unbearable freedom.
I know it's all the same, but laughing seems to be the most, to me, the most authentic response to the message. Because the me wants to go in so many other directions with it, and they all seem to just kind of reinforce the me. Whereas laughing is just feels more authentic.
There's no real authentic or inauthentic response there. It's all this, So crying, laughing, shouting, throwing the microphone at someone's head. It's all up. I mean, that maybe wouldn't be so welcome, but it's all totally like, yes, this is all totally free. A lot of laughter can happen, a lot of tears can happen too, it's just all, in a way, it's fucking beautiful. For no reason at all.
May I ask to this gentleman what is going on there, or what it seems? Can you share this laughing or this crying? I'm sincerely curious to hear some words by there.
Please. I don't want to explain it. It feels like a cosmic joke.
It is, absolutely.
It's a cosmic joke. You can't explain the joke.
Yeah. Perhaps it's something similar to the childlike joy of the revelation that the Emperor has no clothes. Obvious. So obvious.
Yeah.
And yet no one knows it.
And there's all this struggling to try and work it out.
like life was really a problem to be solved.
Rather than lived.
Which is, of course, already. Beingness is already being. Do people want a quick comfort break, or shall we just keep going until we've got 35 to 40 minutes until a break? How are people feeling?
I'd say crack on, but I don't mind.
Yeah. Shall we just keep going? Anyone, the bathroom's just there if anyone wants to use it. So.
It's funny, I've said crack on, but I don't know to what.
Yeah. Let's keep going. Where?
I keep going with trying to find a solution.
Yeah,
To fix it.
Yeah. Or maybe you are.
So in this cosmic joke, the joke consists in the illusion of separation. I mean, the only joke possible is to feel to be separated.
It seems to be a bit of a joke, yeah. That there's a separate, there's a self in control of all of this. Whether it's a uppercase S self or a lowercase s self, or a god, a deity, a Buddha, a bodhisattva, an angel, a yaksha, a laksha, or whatever else. Some saintly beings, yogis, or some salt of the earth type people as well. There's no control. Yeah, it's sort of hilarious when it's seemingly revealed to no one that no one ever did anything, had anything, or knew anything. Yeah. And what can seem to present in a dream of a fictional character called me, can appear everything being very, very serious and important and meaningful. Yeah.
Because it is a survival mechanism of the organism not to be eaten by tigers or...
And that happens absolutely just fine without anyone already. If you think about any time that the body has apparently been in danger, it seems like in that apparent moment it's more obvious than ever before that no one ever jumped out of the way of a car, or immediately took the hand off of the flame, or stubbed the toe, like knee-jerk reaction. It's like it's so fast, it's so obvious, no one does it,
Even neuroscience tells us this, right? That I think it's like half a second before we make an action.
The brain,
the brain,
the body, the nervous system. It's already figured out what to do. It doesn't require anyone. Yeah. And then perhaps a few seconds later, apparently in time, although not really, someone says, "I did that." Yeah. I saved my own life, or I saved someone else's, or I did nothing.
So it's just a claim.
It seems to be a claim, yeah.
Story.
Yeah.
And even that's just appearing out of
Even though, yeah, no one's even doing that.
no.
Yeah. It's a phantom claim that someone is here, knowing what's going on and in charge. It is stunningly hilarious. Yeah. And no one's even doing that. Literally, no one at all. And that's why there's no desire or agenda for that to change or fix, because who's going to do the changing or the fixing or the solving or the curing of anything? Nothing's broken. It's already what is.
So it is like a show without a director, without actors and dancer
It could be.
and
Yeah.
a script. A random show.
Sort of seems that way. I mean, it still suggests there's a story in time and, you know, all that. But yes, it's a bit like a show without an audience or a cast.
I've heard it said that it's like at theme parks, you get these boats that go around a fixed circuit and there's a wheel on it and the kids are there doing
Yeah.
Cool. It's not connected.
That's, yeah. Totally.
That's
totally.
me, isn't it?
That was, that, yeah.
It's just,
Apparent, maybe a more modern version of that was when the kids, this one as well, used to go to an arcade and pretend to play on the game machine, holding the gun in the holster or driving whatever, and the arcade is presenting a demonstration, but the kid gets so fascinated with the movements and that they think they're in control of what's happening on the screen. When you put the gun back in the holster or let go of the wheel, the game just carries on playing. There just was apparently a witness or an observer, which wasn't even really happening in the first place. Yeah.
but you sure? But the thing that you said about the neuros, they've tracked. It's not half a second. It's fractions of a second. This claim. That, oh, I did that. I asked for tea. I asked for coffee.
Yeah.
Whatever. But even that neuroscience who sees that and goes, he still afterwards believes that he's doing it.
Perhaps.
In front, well, perhaps, but in front of hard evidence, I would suggest, it still doesn't have an impact to his apparent authorship, which is interesting, isn't it? Even with hard evidence, he's seeing it. He still carries on believing in the world. Maybe there's a little creak in that where he starts a crack in it and starts to think, maybe I'm not doing this, but it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's a bit lousy to suggest it, but what seems to be is that the conceptual understanding that there's no free will, there's no self, there's no one, it does nothing. It doesn't change anyone's experience, because who would be having a changed experience?
Yeah, exactly.
So it seems to be visceral, energetically visceral. That seems to be the sense that someone's here, in control, knowing what's going on and relating to what's going on, and having a say in the matter. And that seems to be visceral and energetic rather than conceptual. I mean, people sometimes say the brain, the me is a thought. Well, then thought goes away, but me's still here. It's not a thought. It's not anything, actually, but it seems to be a visceral self-sense, felt sense.
Exactly. So this thing, when you're trying to think this out, use your reason to think this through, which is kind of what we hear sometimes. I don't know. It can't do it. That illusion can't think itself out of the illusion, as we said last night.
Yes.
So in that example with the neuroscientist tracking that's the hard proof of that. That logic isn't going to bring me to an end. It's thinking. It can't. Like you say, it's a visceral body held tension or whatever it is.
Yeah, and those thoughts too are just playing out.
Yeah, they're utterly meaningless. They're just like clouds.
Sort of.
Or,
Yeah, no conceptual understanding really seems to alter a perception or, It's just conception and understanding, which is also appearing objectively if someone thinks they're in control of that or knowing it. Just another thing for me to think about or know about or claim to understand, which would just, if anything, seem to reinforce the sense of separation rather than assist its end, but that too is dream stuff.
You are totally right.
Oh, I'm right today.
It is totally clear.
I preferred it when you said I was wrong. Because that was
I changed my mind. You're totally right. It has to be like this. It is totally clear. But why dismiss the function, or why the need of illusion? That's my point.
Yeah.
Why the need of illusion? Why can be obviously this immediacy? Why there is this turning and turning, searching the emptiness that is on the root of everything?
There is no why. Why only appears in the story of me.
So there is delusion. That's all. That's a fact.
I wouldn't say delusion. I would say illusion. Delusion sort of suggests that me is wrong or something, or it's distorted. It's not. It's just a totally illusory phenomena, energetic phenomena, which isn't real.
Yeah.
But it's not bad or wrong or.
But why it is not real? When you say it is illusory, it is a phenomenon.
There's just nothing there. There's nothing. There's not even a there for anything to be. It's like a hologram or something, you know. It's just like an empty, utterly empty appearance, no solidity or substance to it whatsoever. And you know, to use the metaphor of the cloud, it just apparently dissolves. It's so obvious it never was a reality that could actually really dissolve. And it's so obvious that only apparently in contrast, which suggests time too, which is why this can't really be talked about, but in apparent contrast it's so obvious that there was never anyone really having a body, a mind, a heart, anything. And the whole sort of why drama just dies with that, because it's so obvious that time is no longer objectified, therefore it never was. There was never even a never was. So where could be a why in everything? Because everything is timeless, free, boundless, therefore there's no why, because there's no meaning and time to apply this to. Why implies time, space, distance, separation, meaning. There isn't. So that whole why drama is the story, really, that the seeming dream and dreamer lives in and as.
The fact that the I is an additional claim and arrives after a certain amount of time, it doesn't mean that it's not existing. That is, that it has it has not a function, or its essence is to be phenomenic, and why we dismiss this function, the need of being an illusion. Because when we say, or perhaps the way we understand illusion, it's something comparable to fake or non-real, while I think that it's real as itself, as its role in the drama, to be the appearance of someone who says, I did it, even if it does not. I mean, even if it does not have a solidity, this I, it's still existing. It's
a real illusion.
It is the dream of existence.
Sorry?
It's not existing, it's the dream of existence. The word existence means to stick out. Stick out, subject, object. To stick out requires a subject and an object. That is the dream. The dream is existence. Existence is the dream. Apparently collapses, no existence, just simply what is and is not appearing. There's the appearance of a microphone, a chair, a face, a room. There is not an appearance of a self.
Can you repeat, please?
The chair, the floor, the whatever is appearing, sounds appearing, but there is not the appearance of a self. There isn't a self. The illusion is that there isn't an illusion.
So the chair exists, but I don't exist.
The chair would only exist if someone is knowing the chair. When there's no one knowing the chair is just nothing, chairing. It's not objective. So there's just what appears to be happening. To, for, with, by, no one. So an apparent difference, although that still is using dualistic words, but the apparent difference is that what's appearing to happen is real and unreal, empty and full, happening and not happening. But there is no self that is happening. There's no self that's appearing. There's no one that's really appearing. It's not happening really on any level at all. The appearance of a claim might be happening, apparently, but there's no one behind it. It's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. There's, even that's, there's no Wizard of Oz. Yeah, there just is curtain. An energetic magic trick, a cosmic joke. So where is the body going to go to find my own absence? Where is it going to go to find the absence of a me? Where's it going to go to find the presence of a me? It never gets anywhere.
I don't like it.
Who doesn't like it?
We're off to see the wizard.
I heard someone say that me, or the illusory sense of self, whatever you want to call it, is real, but only to itself.
Right.
It's real to itself and to nobody else. So it's an illusion that is real to itself.
Right.
But it's on its own. I don't know if I quite like that idea.
And yet there is no self for it to be real too.
Yeah. But the illusion of it,
Yeah.
is absolutely adamant, isn't it? It will fight to the death for its...
And that's nothing appearing as adamance. No one in it. Yeah.
So it's a strange... just the concept, but the concept of something being real but only to itself
Yes, and that too suggests that the self can become an object that it can know about and relate to, which would require two selves. So I am knowing myself, I've done the neti and the self-inquiry, there's a self-abidance and this and that. I've got closer and closer, I'm circling around the edge of the abyss, the void of nothingness, which is all there is. And I've discovered that there is a self that can abide with itself, and yet it's revealed that there isn't a self that can abide or avoid or distract or move towards or away from. There's no distance and there's no self to be abiding or avoiding, to be moving from, moving towards. It's just, that would just all seem to be nothing appearing as tangled up confusion and seeking and striving.
Yeah, a tangle of madness, I don't know.
Sort of a divine madness, yeah. So an infuriating energy can seem to apparently appear when it's revealed that there isn't a problem to solve. There isn't a person to figure this out. There's no one to be going or coming or becoming or anything else for that matter. There's nothing that needs to happen at all. And that is seemingly for some terrifying and infuriating, and yet there was no sum for that to be annoying too. It's just energy appearing as annoyance.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's very frustrating.
Which is absolute unconditional absurdity appearing as fury. Which is absolutely this too. Yeah.
It's just like the me doesn't know what to do with it.
Because there isn't one.
Yeah. But it still feels like there's one.
So there's a feeling, which is this.
Which is this.
Presenting on behalf of no one.
But there's a resonation with the message, and then the me feels like whichever direction it goes in is kind of reinforcing itself, so it doesn't want to go anywhere. So it just gets frustrated instead and like, what do I do? Yeah,
and a dream would seem to be starving.
Yeah.
For guidance, instruction, teaching, advice, prescription, validation, direction. Not getting any.
Would you say that that seeking, sort of separate me energy, whatever you want to call it, is alive only in action or seeking? Because it is inconsistent. It does stop, apparently. So without, it has to do, doesn't it? It seems to just. Well, in deep sleep, it's gone. But if there's just nothing happening, would you suggest it's dormant, and it's only in that thing about being infuriated? It's hit with this idea that it's just not there, because it has to do something. It gets angry because it. I'm just wondering, is it only alive in action? Is what I'm saying.
The experience of separation always seems to have an agenda with what it's knowing about, thinking about, feeling about, perceiving. It always seems to have an agenda with what it's knowing and relating to.
Which is what I kind of mean. There's some action there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Some agenda.
And yet there's nothing to do and no one to be doing. The distant stream. Knowing what's going on, seeking for something else, and yet no one doing anything. Not even really going through time. Perhaps looking around for something called immediacy. without realizing that immediacy is appearing as looking. And trying to stop looking is immediately appearing. Trying to change direction into which way one is moving. Getting tangled up in concepts, words, terms, trying to declutter all of that with netty practices, going this way and that way, and all hopelessly, just chaotically playing out, timelessly, for no reason at all. Already freedom. Already.
Can you tell us something about the collapse of the illusory Alexis identity? Something of that show?
Is this a bedtime story?
Oh, so we can do the same. That was a joke.
It's all a joke.
Yes.
And what would that do? You would like to know what happened, what apparently happened. Nothing really happens or happened. It's not special, sacred, holy or important or meaningful in any way, shape or form. There's no significance to anything that happens or happened. It wasn't a real event or collapse or shift or anything else that a dream might be seemingly pondering on. And when this seeming story is talked about, delivered, presented, it sounds meaningful, and it also sounds like a real event that happened in time to someone or for someone, with someone, or maybe by someone. It also would seem to suggest cause and effect, which is why, as you can probably tell, there's some apprehension and reluctance to talk about it, because it wasn't a real event or process or even an end of a process. But
I was waiting this but.
I went to different teachers for years, Buddhists and yogis, Qigong practitioners. I learned different teacher trainings and practices and studied different books of different traditions, philosophies, Yoga Sutras, all the rest of it. And then I discovered Mooji and Eckhart Tolle and Rupert and was falling in love with what they had to say and to teach, really feeling like I was validated and given a direction towards an imagined projected destination that I thought was going to be mine, called enlightenment. I'd heard about the stories of the Buddha and a little bit about Lao Tzu and Rumi and other guys who seemed to strive earnestly towards that destination. I stuck with Rupert for a long time, doing the whole awareness of awareness thing. That felt really, really good for a while, and it seemed like there was someone who was in control and had established presence. It seemed very special and meaningful and important and significant. And it really seemed to apparently solidify a sense that someone was doing it. When that awareness of awareness, the self-abidance, was seemingly happening more ever than before, it seemed like there was real control, that someone was really choosing to sit back in the seat of consciousness and just allow the body to do its thing, but yet somewhat in control of it. And then it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. The body, the organism, the nervous system and the experience just was still dissatisfied somehow, even on a subtle level. And so body and so-called me, which wasn't real, kept on shopping around for other teachers who would perhaps give a slightly better or more advanced teaching than Atma Vichara. Was unfortunate enough to discover someone who wasn't teaching, instructing, prescribing or advising anything. His name was Tony. And at first there was repulsion by that, because one wanted to be validated as a real individual that's really in control, that can meaningfully move towards the destination, the promised land. And something brought body back, which can only sort of lousily be described as a gravitational pull. Resonating seemed to be happening, chatting on the phone seemed to be happening, and whole sense of position, illusory position, located in time, space, consciousness and experience. The whole personal paradigm of being an individual collapsed. The end.
When in time was this?
Last year. Body kind of intuited that all of these teachings and guidelines and principles and practices and ethical guidelines are just somehow missing the point. There is a sort of intuition that there is no one and no chooser, and that so-called enlightenment is unconditional freedom, so how could anyone move towards or away from that? If it's unconditional freedom, where is that going to be limited? When is it going to be? It's so obvious. It's all there is. And this sort of crystal clear, sharp, direct, uncompromising, no BS, apparent communication just slices it up, but it doesn't really. Compassion without compromise for no one.
Congratulations. 21. Oh, still.
There is no validation, there is just a total, radical, embracing allowance that swallows up a dream that's not really happening, and therefore there's no real separation between compassion, unconditional love, separation, and whatever else is appearing. All sort of validations, all as sincere as they may seem to be, that someone can do something, needs to do something, could make progress, just feeds something that's not really happening. And because there's no separation, that too is not true. This unbearable compassion that is totally all-encompassing and radically free and allowing, it doesn't meet anyone or anything. It's not positional, so there's nothing to be on the receiving or the giving end of what's seemingly being shared in these meetings. There's no exchange or transmission, there's no recipient, there just is nothing else other than what is already boundlessly free. It's an unacceptable, blasphemous compassion which leaves nothing and no one, and yet everything already. Let's have a break.
Would you like?
Okay.
Can you help?
Here comes in.
Musical chairs.
You need to help.
Without the music. Yeah.
I'll put it on. 1 second. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'll move out of the way. Is that it? A bit more?
I don't know.
There's some sort of cable there as well, at the bottom. That's it. That's it. That's it. Come on. And this one on there.
Gabriella's looking very confused.
This one, and then leave the two in the middle, because this one, if we pull, it's a bit hard.
I think that's all right like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's okay like that.
Push and then I'm just sliding off.
Yeah, this is okay. That's plenty of air, isn't it?
Sitting in the sun.
Oh, you're sitting in the sun. Okay.
Oh.
How does it look any different?
Sorry?
Because the glass magnifies the heat.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's kind of warms up there.
Yeah.
True.
That's a bigger gap in the middle. Are you going to be? Okay. That's great. Thanks. Yeah. That's good.
I want to
Just a seat in the shade.
Gabriella's looking so confused. Like, what are these nuts doing? You had to be there.
To experience it.
If anyone is hot, there is a chair here.
Might come in.
No, there's still,
Yeah, go for it.
there's true. You remove the...
I was going to say.
Yeah, you could a little bit, yeah, a little bit of...
Shall I play Benny Hill or something else?
Yeah, thank you. More, yeah. Thank you.
Musical chairs.
Lovely.
You could sit there, Alessandro, if you want to. If you're happy.
Oh, no, okay.
Oh, is this because of heat?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry, then now you're sitting there.
No, actually, now that's slightly better for me. I'm fine as well. I get some. At the worst, I get suntan.
You can move back.
Wait, I thought you wanted to move around for the sun.
No.
Plus, Carl, if you're stuck, you could even.
It's fine.
Are you okay there?
I'm just struggling not to laugh. Now I feel like I've got 3 judges sitting in front of me. Like I'm on some sort of, I don't know, like talent show or something.
Which one's Simon Cowell?
Definitely Alessandra, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Right position as well.
Yeah.
Should we turn the chairs round and then
Yeah.
Oh, that's the voice, isn't it?
make
Yeah.
the decision?
Yeah. Now, who would Michael be? I mean, if this isn't distraction, I don't know what is. Will I am, yeah.
That's cool.
William has glasses, doesn't he?
I mean, your will is now I am.
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah.
It's a lot more important than what this is talking about. Rambling on about.
I was already recording.
Yeah. This is all going to go in the recording. Yeah. Nothing left out.
You don't have the X factor.
Oh!
I'm sorry, Alexis. You are very talented,
From
but
Alessandro Cowell himself.
I guess X kind of marks the spot, so not having a location is.
Oh, thanks, Will. Yeah.
So also,
no, I definitely don't. No, you're right. Yeah.
So also the Darwinian theory of evolution, and from bacteria to complex organisms and brain and dinosaurs and the layers from the beginning, and so even the Big Bang and the born of the universe, it's a story in that sense, because it's a definition. It's like a close-up done from the apparent individual of something which is nothing appearing as what appeared.
Yeah, it's a story. That doesn't make it illusory necessarily. It's a story about how universe apparently came into being. Stars, solar systems, atoms, elements, molecules, all the dance of energy playing and whatever. Yeah.
Because language appeared probably, from what we say from science, is 200,000 or 300,000 years ago, when we acquired the ability to speak. And so I mean, did it happen or not?
Well, nothing really happens.
Yeah.
Nothing is really happening.
Because the animals too, they don't have distance probably, we don't know, because dolphins probably have, or I'm speaking just from the perspective of what we learn in school and what the scientists told us being the facts.
Yeah.
Even if there is no authorship, or because they speak about nature like all there is. We can translate nature with all there is. And so they don't have distance. We, as mammals and bipeds, acquired this distance from where we can communicate or share, or being in the situation where we can talk about this.
Yeah. So time and space and consciousness are seemingly reduced from felt sense of reality to merely concepts, ideas and memories. So apparently, once upon an illusory time, time, space and consciousness are felt as real things, constructs that I live in. No more, just concepts, just ideas. They're just, there's a concept that there's time, there's memory, there's the appearance of memory, association. There's the appearance of an idea that there's a pub down the road that apparently we went to last night in a time line, but that's not sensed as a reality. It's just the appearance of memories and ideas and thoughts. But the separation experience seems to feel that as a reality. It's like a felt sense that time is real, space is real, I am real.
So metaphorically, we are closer to bacteria than to what we think to be. I mean, bacteria do not, from what we know, from what they teach us, they don't have, they could be described as you describe the appearance of human beings, or so-called human beings, because we should say so-called for everything in a way, no? So-called word, so-called me, so-called body, so-called chair.
Yeah, so the words so-called, seem and apparent seem to get used a lot in meetings.
Okay.
Not so much outside of meetings, because there's just no need for that. But when it comes to exposure, seeming exposure, those words pop up a bit more because what's exposed is nothing being everything, which is neither apparent, obvious, or real or unreal. It's nothing. So every word seems to come with the seeming disclaimers, the disclaimer words like seeming and apparent, because nothing can be held onto. Nothing is really happening and nothing is really elaborated on within a non-duality meeting. So there's no inclination to get into a scientific debate, or any other for that matter, because it's just not really on that level of trying to understand anything or convey anything. So you can, suggest that the body does this and it presents as that, and the way it functions and the way it evolved, and the connection between this tissue and that tissue, and fibres and organisms and molecules and bacteria. But that's just all nothing being this.
Sorry. So I'm thinking about dream analogy, and how in a dream there appear to be people and objects and space and time, and something is happening. But when we wake up, we know it's all made of the same dream stuff. So there is that the dream itself as an appearance, it's all that was in the dream, it's one and the same. So in that sense, is this kind of similar to disappearance?
In a dream, in the night time, you mean?
Yes, dream, when we dream.
So there's just dreaming and deep sleeping and waking and all of this, yeah.
Yes, but I was thinking kind of as an analogy, or can it be compared to this appearance? That sometimes I'm thinking the dream is the closest, and of course it's used a lot as trying to make like a, not parallel, but to make this our experience of this kind of similar to dream. Like when we wake up from a dream at night, we see that it was appearance, but not only just that it was appearance, but everything was made from the same stuff. And in that same dream stuff, everything was a dream stuff, and there was no because in dream we also have time and space and separate objects, etc. But in the morning, not only just that it's an appearance, but it's one.
There's no real stuff that anything is made of. There's no real comparison. There's just dreams, sleep and wakefulness. The dream that's being talked about in so-called meeting is that someone is awake. The dream is that there's someone awake.
I guess for me it's more coming from the point of what I was still trying to figure out yesterday, the whole locality thing, or this illusion, because the mind cannot wrap itself around it. So that's why I was thinking of the dream, that's the only thing where I can think, wow, here I think there was a space and time, but clearly there wasn't. So in that sense.
Perhaps that there's an apparent similarity, but it's not really a similarity or a difference.
Okay, so it's, okay.
This so-called natural reality, which is all there is seemingly a lot more like deep dreamless sleep than it is dream life, like dream state, because it's just empty, nothing, and yet it's everything.
Okay. Yes, because in a dream we also feel like okay, I'll speak for myself. Like I feel like I have a body and something is happening to me, etc. in the dream.
But only that is seemingly accessed via a memory.
Actually, that's so.
Which can easily be distorted. Because someone is viewing the memory of a dream as an object of reference.
Yes.
And maybe even in the memory of a dream that apparently happened last night, for example, the experience of separation seeming to need to assert its eternal lifespan puts itself into the dream state, saying, I was there having that dream, I was in that dream. How does it know that? It just seems to feel secure and safe when it apparently imposes itself onto everything, including its own memories, which it doesn't really have. It's not anything, it's not anywhere, it never was, never is, never will be, it's timeless and yet not even really happening.
You know, when it's said, this is it, what is this?
This is what is and is not. It's not really nameable. Even names and descriptions, concepts is this. This is all-encompassing, it's everything, and yet it's not a thing, it's nothing. This is also a word that attempts to point out what is, which is really unpoint-outable. It's just everything and yet not a thing.
I think at least I find it confusing because, you know, normally when we say this, I think like it's like what, again, these eyes can see or what's in front of me. But it's not that.
It just is everything. Everything that's happening is this. Even the sense, albeit illusory, that someone is relating to this is also this. That someone's hearing these words is this. Someone is happening is this. Or the assertion that there's someone here is this. Thoughts, opinions, ideas, beliefs, views, values, perception, sensation, feeling of the heart, sitting on the chair, everything is totally this. Even the statement, but there's more than this, is this.
I actually have another question, a bit different. I mean, different from what I was asking until now. It just came to my mind. You know, some people would say that they experienced, like, let's say, this dropping of the eye or the experience of separateness, but then it would come back. So I'm just kind of curious, once that, I don't know what to call it, realization happens, I guess, is this what people are saying, if it comes back, or this is something completely different?
No one has an experience of non-existence. No one has an experience of falling away. The so-called falling away is the end of an experiencing dream, an existing dream, a separate dream. And there's no real timeline for me to fall out of and then come back into. So there's not really a falling away in the first place. There's no real separation separate self to fall away and or come back. It already isn't a reality, and it only apparently falls away, which is totally insubstantial and insignificant. It's not a real shift or change or event or state. It's nothing.
How can you say it's not significant? I'm just
There's just no solidity, there's no substance. Okay. Yeah. And it would seem, although this is totally story-based as well, but it would seem that when body is apparently, let go of this dream, this totally illusory and insubstantial experience, it just is so obvious, and there's nothing to stick to. There's nothing left. There's no residue for any sense to reappear. It's the whole thing is up. It's the jig is up. It's so obvious.
Okay.
It's got nothing to come back and latch onto. What would it latch onto? It's already not really latching on at all. There's no substance to a so-called energy.
Okay. Because I've heard, like that people would bring up the so-called awakening moments, etc. So this is also like part of the
It's
dream.
illusory, yeah. I mean, this liberation as an event in time is totally illusory. Liberation, enlightenment, awakening, glimpses, it's illusory because it's already what is. To call it those things sounds like a something that happens in time to someone. So although it's apparent that there's a falling away of that sense, it's not a real falling away. So in a dream, there's perhaps a waiting around and anticipating some kind of energetic shift or change, which feels really real or something, or visceral or noticeable. But that isn't a reality. It's not real. It's not a real thing that really happens at all. Resonating, basking, percolating, whether that's psychological, physiological, energetic or conceptual, it doesn't matter. It already is what is.
Yeah, I guess, my mind wants to have some idea of progress, or like that kind of getting closer to, or...
Yeah, closer to what is already.
Yeah.
Maybe it even thinks it's slowing down a wheel, like a cog of separation, like samsara. The wheel of samsara is finally slowing down, and maybe when it gets slow enough, then I can step off into nirvana. Yeah, or join the spiral path upwards, or whatever else it seems to imagine.
Yeah.
The word already, along with the word immediate, never really gets heard.
No.
Hope that.
Indescribable.
Yeah.
The dynamic intensity of aliveness is unbearable for this dream, which is not really happening. It's everything. It's everywhere. It's nowhere. There is no location. There is no one. The wobbling is the fear of death, which is already everything, around every corner, and yet not even distant to be around. It's so all-embracing and all-encompassing.
Stop it.
It's just so free.
Mm-hmm.
Indescribably free.
Indescribable freedom.
No distance, no. Just
Yeah. No location, no boundaries, not even expansive. No limitation, no boundary, no edge. Boundless.
Nothing to try and do about it, nothing to say that can change what's going to arise anyway.
And no one to.
And no one to do any of that.
Already. This is home for no one.
without wanting to be too provocative, the exposure.
You can ask anything you want, and that goes for anyone.
It's more a comment. The exposure feels like almost like a form of neti, because it's kind of like people come to the meeting and get all their questions like negated. It seems to kind of serve that purpose in a way.
It doesn't serve a purpose. But
but it appears to.
That would seem to be another negation. Yeah. No. Yeah. Just constant no. No meaning, no purpose, no significance, no intention, no values, no beliefs, no opinions, no me, no nothing. Just this. Not even this. No that. No. But what about no? No thing.
You just said, this is home. And I just felt wonderful, but this is always home, huh?
There is only home, yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever is happening is home. Unconditional home. Already. So no one is home. No one's away from home. Looking for home is home looking for home. There is only home.
I could ask a question.
Yeah.
So, would you say there's no meaning at all? So, there's just meaninglessness?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Because there is a sort of reflexive, mechanical, meaning-making sort of thing going on.
Mm-hmm. Which is also meaninglessly playing out.
Yeah. Yeah. And when those two things are sort of juxtaposed, it's like, okay, well, one thing's more attractive than the other. The meaning making is more sticky.
Perhaps meaning making is stickiness, because meaning requires time and difference. It requires separation. This means that. There's no this or that. There's no meaning. Everything is nothing.
Yeah. And it even likes the meaning is nothing, or whatever you said. Everything is nothing, or whatever, because there's sort of meaning imbued into separation, quite sticky.
But because even the appearance of meaning in and as a story is just meaninglessly appearing, there is absolutely no need for that to be any other way.
The thing is here, like, that becomes a story. So what's dwelled upon is meaninglessness as a story.
Right.
And
so suddenly this all seems nihilistic, perhaps.
Yeah. And then what's enjoyed is that, that sort of like seeing it, some kind of insight or some kind of glimpse is what you talked about, there's a sense of someone getting something. So would it be accurate just to say everything is meaninglessness, or there's just meaninglessness? There's
So there's no report going on which is separate from this. So therefore there's no sense that anything is more or less accurate than anything else. But this appearing as exposure, which is not real either, just simply proposes that there is no meaning or purpose to anything, because there's no real dimensions, layers or time or space. There's no real separation, therefore there's no real meaning or purpose. And yet boundlessness, being free, can appear as perceiving and sensing, distance, separation, duality. This being all there is can too appear as a sense of someone trying to understand that, use it, apply it, acknowledge it, figure it out. There's no value to anything that this body is apparently yapping on about.
Would you say that it's not meaningless nor meaningful?
It's not anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no real labels or definitions, therefore it's not meaningful or meaningless. There's no it, so there's no labels or definitions, and yet talking is this too. It's just talking happening. Yeah. It just seems to be an exposure that apparently annihilates a dream that's not really happening, and yet it's not really. It's annihilating it by exposing that it's not happening. Doesn't make any sense.
So also matter is a construct.
It's just emptiness mattering, yeah.
Magically happening.
It's like the me cuts the supposed reality in pieces and loses that is one block, let's say metaphorically, like the elephant in Vedantic tradition, that there are four men touching the elephant, but at the end there is just the elephant, and they think that is a nose, foot, or
the position relating to another position. The dream doesn't divide parts, the dream is dividing. The dream is division. The dream doesn't do division, the dream is division. There's no division between the dream and dividing, there just is a dream that appears.
So it sees through the glass of division whatever it sees. Let's say
that sort of still suggests there's
a real
someone
separation
dividing some things. But the subject object is the dualistic dream. No one is in a dualistic dream. The dualistic dream is the someone dream. Because where this seems to differentiate between many teachings and traditions is that what's suggested with other expressions is suggesting that someone is in a dream that can wake up from the dream. That will then still be happening, but just in some sort of apparently non-dual state, which seems to be a totally contradiction of terms. There's no one that wakes up from the dream. The dream is that there is someone trying to wake up, and yet avoiding that at all costs, because that's death of the individual, which isn't already really happening.
And then he cannot choose this or avoid this, because it's not in charge, not being existing. I cannot choose to collapse, and I cannot choose to avoid. Because always apparently
there already isn't an I to choose to collapse. This is not saying there's nothing you can do, it's saying there is no you.
No you.
So just the vastness appearing as someone is speaking.
Vaster than vast, really.
Yeah,
vast, expansive, gargantuan, although, would seem to elaborate, don't really, because it still suggests space, just a very, very, very big space. There's no space.
It's just the word, just
it's beyond vast.
Energy or
Boundless is really that sort of, if any word was to come close, which never does, because there's no close or far, boundless is it. Because it's just totally boundless, it's boundaryless, there's no container, no limitation.
Boundless is this.
Yeah. So an imagined idea is that there's a huge, gargantuan, incomprehensibly big space where everything is happening. There's no space. There's no location. There's no here or there. There's no big or small pond. There's just boundlessness. Yeah.
Yes. Where is it, isn't it?
Nowhere, no it, just isness.
I'm curious, is your body processing the world differently from how it used to? Was there any change on a biological level?
There's no real change. There's just whatever.
Appearance.
Yeah, well, without wanting to correct or whatever, but there's no real change, because memory is this too. So there's no real separation for there to be a change, you see. There's memories appearing, ideas appearing, perceiving happening, sensation, tingling, buzzing, pulsating, throbbing, it's all this, yeah. There's just no sense that there's a position with that, or behind it, or knowing it. There's no sense of position, that's all. That's the only apparent difference, which isn't really a difference. That's the dream of difference. So everything just goes on timelessly without anyone knowing it, without anyone in there, without a centre.
I guess that's why I'm confused, because with the body there is yeah, this, well, okay, apparent sense of center, but let's say,
Yeah.
of course, that you would feel pain or...
Pain can appear, but no one is in pain. No one is in pain. There's no in or out.
Okay, so sorry if this might be like a stupid question. So let's say, so if that pain, would the feeling of it be different now than how it used to be?
The only apparent difference is that there's no objectification, so there's no objectified pain. It's just pain.
So like it's not your, it's not feeling, it's my pain.
Yeah, there's no my, there's no your, there's no one having pain. There's no one having anything. It's just pain.
And it's not pain-free. You know, like there are like lots of these promises that things will live in eternal bliss.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah. Maybe I'll go back to the holistic teachings.
Well, body, you know, again, body still apparently avoids pain. That's the conditioning of the nervous system. You know, the nervous system doesn't just switch off and forget to breathe. You know, breathing happens, sticking a plaster on a cut happens, you know, stretching and breathing happens, maybe even massage, you know, whatever, it happens if that's conditioning, but it's just no one doing it, having it. Yeah.
Okay.
And can appear even negative states of negative emotions, we could say emotions, or they disappear because there is no more contraction.
There's no negativity or positivity. So what once was deemed negative and positive is just simply what it is. For example, anger, once apparently deemed negative, is no longer positive or negative, just anger. Because there's no objectification to anger, therefore anger is not deemed as bad, good, right, wrong, positive, negative, neutral. It's just anger. No one having an agenda with anger, therefore no one to label anger even, therefore not even anger. Just full-blown aliveness.
Jealousy, envy, or...
Well, jealousy and envy would seem to be more about relationship. Those would be like sub-emotions that I have.
So they disappear.
Who knows? I mean, jealousy seems very much a me-orientated thing, as does shame, because it requires a sense of self to be feeling shameful. Shoulds and shouldn'ts, those kinds of things are not substantial at all, not real. Those things would seem to be apparently coming on top of anger and sadness. There's just raw, full-on aliveness with no one navigating it. No narrative. Yeah, no narrative. There's no narrative.
The way that this body seems to experience pain, a lot of it seems to be amplified by kind of psychological processes, thinking about it, worrying about it. I guess that would kind of fall away.
Who knows?
Yeah. So this... Yeah.
There's just immediacy. There's no continuity, so there's just thought, sensation, perception. There's no story that links it all together, tries to piece it together or pick it apart. There's none of these games that get played. There's just whatever is immediately appearing to happen. No agendas with what is, just what is. Simple and free to be whatever is happening. No one doing what's happening, just what's happening.
In this case, you are doing a distinction between body and mind. You say those kind of dissolves because they are not real and they are related to relationship and this duality, let's say. And then you say the body feels immediacy. It's like the body works, it knows how to function, The problem is the mind. So the mind is divided by the body. No,
there's no mind and there's no problem.
But the body, there is a body. I mean, you always say
appearance
body.
of body. Appearance of body, yeah.
Appearance of body.
It's, there's sensation, visual.
Because the body is always interpreted by, the chair doesn't interpret itself and...
But body isn't really interpreting, it's just interpreting happening.
Interpreting happening. I will reflect on this.
So no one and no thing is responsible for anything. There's no distance between anything to be doing anything. There's no between. Just immediacy already. Nothing bodying, nothing sensing, nothing thoughting, nothing interpreting, nothing thising. Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no one applies this.
No.
This isn't applied, this is pointing out there's no one to be applying anything. Life is already happening as it's happening, without anyone in it. Whether you call that life or nothing, or aliveness or boundlessness or energy, makes no difference. It just is already what is happening. No one doing this already. So there's no non-dual understanding or awakening that then gives guidance as to how a body should behave and treat patients of a certain profession.
Yeah. But at the same time, since the moment let's forget all my apparent path, as many I think have here, or spiritual path, since I heard this sharing, something changed, at least innerly, no? Psychologically, because once I was completely focused on what I'm saying, the emotion that I have was aligned with the other person in front of me, and then since that moment a kind of confusion happened. So you're saying it was necessary like that. It's the appearing as me teaching something, it's the appearing of me being confused by the coherency of teaching those things rather than others. And so it's happening in my teaching.
It's all what's already happening without anyone doing anything.
Okay. There is no one in charge who chose to teach or to
stop teaching, yeah. It's all...
Or to stop teaching, yes.
Teaching, going on teaching, not teaching, changing profession, it all happens as it happens without anyone doing anything already.
So, I need a job.
I will just share, if you like, this works with very sick kiddies, disabled children. And when this came across this message, it thought, holy shit, what am I going to do? Because it still didn't fully get that no one is already doing anything.
Yeah.
It thought, I'm going to have to stop. I'm going to have to stop working with these children because I no longer believe that I'm a real individual in control. Yet I still sort of thought I could choose to stop or carry on.
Okay.
And apparently now, there's just being with the kids as they are.
Oh, okay.
That's not advice.
No, it's clear.
Just being with the kids as they are just simply happens. So this isn't the same, but just as a bit of a story and a sharing for what it's worth, which is nothing. I used to think I was teaching those kids. yoga, actually. Stretching, massage, breathing, relaxation, nidra, chanting, sound, therapy, all of this and that. And now it's just joyfully happening for no reason at all. And I can tell you it's all a lot less serious. It's just play, really. Teaching reduced to play, and yet not even reduced. And being with, of course, when pain and sadness and sorrow and suffering and grief is happening, there's just being, there's just that happening, which is just as gorgeous and as beautiful as everything else. There's nothing wrong with it, no resistance, no one to be resisting or being with even, just total aliveness. In all of its fruitfulness, in all of its tragedy and majesty, total everything. So there's the appearance of conflict happening, and regardless of if there's a sense that someone's in there or not, that already is all happening effortlessly as anything.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, this really isn't good news. It's not bad news either, necessarily. Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen? Spouses and partners could run away, fall out with friends and siblings and all sorts. Losing jobs, losing mortgages, losing things all over can seem to happen, or not. Maybe things change and you know, new opportunities present, but it all happens timelessly, effortlessly, for no reason at all, and no one is navigating it.
Good stuff. I mean, good peel.
Yeah. It's just the liberation that is seemingly exposed it's so boundless, it just is totally unnavigatable. It's so everythingness. Just absolutely everything. Yeah. This dream lives in and as the appearance of constraint, thinking it's confined and secure going this way. It's an illusory appearance of being narrow and constrained and confined, but also a false sense of security and position, which is totally insubstantial. This exposure is beyond acceptability. That love that is seemingly longed for, staring, screaming, dancing, playing, singing, in and as everything, throbbing in and as everything. Totally all-encompassing freedom, and yet no one to know it or be with it, just simply throbbing aliveness, everything and no thing at all. Thank you, much love.